Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Biz Dev Live. I'm so glad you're here with me. I have Giuseppe Grammatico on with me today, and we're going to talk about franchising. Not only franchising in the idea of McDonald's or Subways or all these different kinds of companies that you can think of, and I'm sure I've already made an error, and Giuseppe's going to correct me and let you know what a real franchise is. We were having a great conversation and setting up this show around a friend that was wanting to open up a Chick-fil-A, right? So there's so many things that go into the franchise thing, but we're also going to talk about how to actually think like a franchisee, right? Somebody that is going to build a franchise business. These are the things that you want to be doing in your business. I'm so excited to get into it. Stick with me. We'll be right back after the Biz Dev Live theme.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T, Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
So Giuseppe Grammatico has owned a number of master franchise licenses and enjoyed a successful franchising career, guiding over 200 individuals through business ownership, many for the first time. In addition to 2 decades in franchising, he also has 20 years of sales, marketing, and management experience. He has assisted over 1,000 individuals and businesses with their investments and achieved over $1 billion in sales. Not everyone is motivated by money and fame, and Giuseppe knows this. He takes the overwhelming guesswork out of the franchising process, listening and teaching along the way, learning about his candidates' specific goals for their business and lives, aided in guiding them down the dream path. Those bold enough to take action on their own are the ones that realize the freedom boldness can deliver. Freedom favors the bold is his line. Thank you so much for being on the show with me, Giuseppe. I'm excited to get into this topic. You're a fan of the E-Myth Revisited as I am, Michael E. Gerber's book. I know this is going to be a great conversation. Thanks for being on the show.
Cameron, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Love that intro video, by the way. That was really nice. That's probably one of the best ones I've seen so far. So compliments to you.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you serve people. Obviously, you help people through the franchise process. I thought the conversation that we had just really briefly, a friend of mine, because I've sort of played with the idea in my head, but I've never seriously gone after it. But I had a friend that went down the road with, I think, a Chick-fil-A franchise process. And you were like right away, like, yeah, there's not a lot of money there. This is the benefits. This is the downside. So you have a lot of experience with that process and helping people. So how do you help people that way?
How do I help people? So I help people by figuring out their why. Why are they doing this to begin with, right? So owning a business is very difficult. It's an investment. There's a risk. It's a lot of time. So I always ask people why. Why are you looking at a business? Why are you looking at a specific business? And then reverse engineering it and basically working in reverse of figuring out exactly, okay, I want to accomplish this. For example, time freedom, just like I did years ago before my kids were born. I wanted to make sure I was set up. So what do I have to do to, accomplish that? And I essentially work in reverse and help everyone that I work with do the exact same thing.
I think one of the interesting things that came out of that conversation with the Chick-fil-A business was you were like, well, especially if you were trying to, be an owner that wasn't involved in the daily business, that probably wouldn't be the franchise for you. So I thought that was interesting, just that knowledge in that particular franchise, and I know that every franchise is a little bit different.
Right.
Talk to me how you found this, right? So what did little Giuseppe want to be when he was growing up, and how's that road twisted and found its way to franchise work and helping people on their path to franchising their businesses?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, what I wanted to be was a soccer player, professional soccer player, and things change along the way. Priorities change, interests change, and things like that. So, so the moral of the story is life is going to throw you curveballs. Life, maybe priorities will change, and that's fine. And that's part of the journey. So, wanted to become a soccer player, ended up going to college, ended up in investments, did well, and just didn't really enjoy it. Didn't enjoy working for a large company, having no kind of say in the big decisions, treated almost like a number, I felt like. So that's when I took a step back and said, we own a family business with my family, in the restaurant business, and really enjoy that. Love the flexibility, love to be able to make these big decisions. It's just that wasn't the right business for me. I wanted to start a family, and it was a lot of nights, weekends, and holidays. So ended up getting married. We live here in New Jersey, my wife and 2 kids. And before my son was born in 2007, I said, I have to make a decision. I can't be commuting 5 hours round trip every day. And reached out to a franchise coach who inspired me to actually become a franchise coach shortly after, in investing in my first franchise to really build the lifestyle that I was looking to build. And that was a lifestyle where I had time freedom, financial freedom, in order to, do what was important to me. And that was coach soccer, be with my family, go on vacations, be present, and not be a weekend dad where I just saw the kids on the weekend. So that's just kind of the short version of that.
What were some of the franchises that you owned?
So we were in commercial cleaning and building services. That was it. So I expanded that business in the central and northern New Jersey market. And so learned a lot on the way. It was a newer franchise, and it was a valuable lesson in exactly how a franchise gets started and then eventually evolves throughout the years.
And I think that's important too, because a lot of people, when they think of franchise, they think of McDonald's, right?
Right.
McDonald's, is the ultimate test case of the franchise model. You go back to Roy Kroc. And so anybody that's been educated on what a franchise is, basically McDonald's. So you think burgers, you think fries, you think food,
right?
You think convenient fast food, that's a franchise, right? So Chipotle, that's, right there, you get that in your brain. But franchise business model, and I think this is great for business owners and entrepreneurs to just think about this as a business model for any of their businesses, right? Is that if you can make something turnkey, if you can build a McDonald's university, if you will, or what do they call it, Burger University or whatever it is, for your business, if you can teach other people how to run it and do it in the same way or even more profitable than the way that you're running your original base unit and test case, right, then you can actually build a franchise with your business, which I think was one of the reasons I was most excited to do this show with you, is that, people that are entrepreneurs, either if you're thinking about buying a franchise, or wait a minute, what if somebody buys a franchise from you, right? What if somebody buys your business and replicates it somewhere else? I think it's such a, it opens the world to possibilities, right? You start thinking about that way, then it's like, how do I streamline my systems, my processes? So anyway, so you got involved in a cleaning company. That was your franchise. What was your experience there? What was the learning curve? You'd been at JP Morgan and Alliance Bernstein, right? You've been in the financial, now you're owning your own business. Very different. I imagine, like most entrepreneurs, at some point you found yourself cleaning a wall or a floor, which was very different than, I'm sure, the office work at JP Morgan. What was that experience like? What did you learn from that? How do you sort of guide and teach people from that experience?
Yeah, it's a great experience because you learn firsthand, and you can explain to people what it truly means to own a business, whether it's a franchise or not. What it means to invest, maybe next to owning a home, maybe the second largest investment. How does it feel not to be able to pay yourself the first month when you're used to a consistent income? Didn't learn that in undergrad, didn't learn that in graduate school, was told that it wasn't going to be as easy, but unless you go through it and experience it directly. So I learned a lot. And the reason I got into franchising is kind of going back to the E-Myth Revisited. I wanted a system already built for me that I could run with. I am not maybe the creative type where I want to create the business from scratch. Show me the system, show me best practices, and let me run with it. And was it perfect? No, absolutely not. Being a young guy in my mid 20s, still figuring it out, still learning about networking and the best ways of going about doing business, because the franchise is going to obviously guide you, but you obviously have to run the business. You're responsible for hiring those employees and keeping them on and motivated. So we learned a lot. There's always that learning experience, but love the idea that the business was built for me. So that's what I ask everyone. You're interested in a franchise. Do you want that business built for you? You know, if you buy a McDonald's, don't go in with the intention not to follow the system, that you're going to start selling pizza and things that aren't on their menu. It's really to follow that system. Or do you want to build a business from scratch? And here's the secret. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about what you are looking for in a business, what's going to be sustainable, what's going to make you happy. Because if you jump into a business that your friend makes a lot of money in, and it's not something that you were used to, like maybe something in fast food, you're managing a large number of employees, that business may not turn out too well for you if the expectation is just to kind of open it up and make a lot of money. So really reflect. I always say it's kind of corny, but the answers are within, but really figure out what the ideal business looks like. There's definitely a franchise out there with 4,000 options out there. So you are not limited when it comes to franchising.
And what are some of the skills that people really need to think about when they're building, you know, their list, right, of what they want to do, right? Because you talked about, you know, what kind of life do you want to lead? What are you encouraging people to really kind of identify?
Yeah. So, you know, we dive into, first off, the motivation. Why are we doing this? Both positive and negative. What are you trying to get away from? Is it the long commute? Is it, you know, at my last job, I love my manager if she's listening in, but I had multiple managers, manager on top of manager. The hierarchy never ended. So, you know, figure out what the business looks like. Do you want to be in a service business where you're working from home and your employees, whether they be W-2 or 1099, are going directly to the customer? Maybe it's a homeowner, maybe it's a business. Or do you prefer maybe a larger investment, but now you own something similar to a McDonald's? Maybe it's a standalone retail location, maybe it's in a shopping mall, but you have the customers coming to you. So that's one aspect. We look at number of employees, and the answers are I always jokingly say, don't tell me it depends. You know, be honest. Would you prefer a larger number of employees, or if you had to kind of create or find the perfect franchise, will that be maybe just a few employees? Maybe it's 4 or 5 or less employees to start. So that list goes on. We talk about territory. Where do you want to be located in doing business? Mm-hmm. So it's not about what will generate you more money. It's about what's going to make you happy. So we go down this list of characteristics, and once we go down that list, and I'll ask you why along the way, why this, why that. And once we start to really dig deep and figure that out, then we start to put together a guide or a roadmap and look at 2 or 3 franchise companies that match that.
And you know, I know it's a long list, but just to give people some ideas, because I always get confused too, which company out there is a franchise, which is a chain, what's the difference? Is there, you know, I mean, when you were talking about, you know, I was talking about my friend Michael Johnson, who was trying to get this Chick-fil-A. He wanted it in a place near him. They were kind of making him jump through hoops. And if he wanted it, he was going to be over here. And he was like, you know, I don't want to change where I live for this opportunity. What are some different opportunities out there that are fairly popular and well-known that people can sort of look to? Obviously, there's a lot of franchises across the United States and international. We can't list them all, but what are some that, you know, as you're walking down the mall, you can sort of look around and say, oh, that's an interesting business model. That's an interesting business model. Which ones are actually franchise ownership opportunities?
Yeah, there's so many, and the big thing is I always say, how do you want to run this business? Is it an owner operator where you're leaving your job to do this full time, because some franchise companies will kind of make that mandatory. They want you there full time, and others are built for, enterprise builders, semi-absentee ownership, where you can possibly keep your job and run the business part time. So we
some like, I know McDonald's allows for, I don't know what the rules around it are, but I know that McDonald's, because I've seen franchisees that own multiple McDonald's, but some, they don't want you to own more than one.
Correct. There are certain franchise companies that they will allow you to only own one. Others, in fast food, will require you to be there full time. So now you're limited to you're trying to accomplish time freedom, but you have to be at the location every day. So right there's a disconnect when I'm working with people that want to achieve more time freedom. So that's why we go down that list. And if someone wants to build a legacy or wants to sell this business for a huge multiple, you're going to come across a challenge with, just because you brought them up like a Chick-fil-A, because you really don't own the business. It has a lower price point to invest in, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're looking for. But you won't have equity.
The lower entry place, but you're not getting the equity that something that a larger purchase buy-in, right? Because you could sell a McDonald's franchisee, is that right?
You could sell other franchises for the most part. Just about any other franchise that I know of, you can sell for whatever multiple it is. But in that particular case, yes, it's more of a partnership. After the agreement, you part ways, and there's no equity built. You maybe had a nice income stream, but no equity built in the business, and that's where people rely on in many cases for their retirement, or that's their kind of their exit strategy, and they're done and retired and on vacation.
If I'm walking down the mall and I see a place, I'm assuming that a Gap is a chain kind of thing that's just driven by corporate. I don't think you can just go own a
Right.
Gap or an Old Navy or something like that. I am assuming something like a Wetzel's Pretzels is more on the franchise side. Is there retail outlets that are franchise opportunities, just so people know, like what and how would they go about, how would I go about, what's the easiest way to find out if a particular chain or brand is franchisable?
Yeah, there on the retail, we have a lot of fitness. You come across, we call that boutique fitness, where you'll find in a shopping mall. Retail, there are companies, believe it or not, Metal Supermarkets, a company we just spoke with, and they will sell various building materials, aluminum, metals, and things like that. So you just if you go right to the company's website, you'll know they're a franchise. There'll be a franchise tab on the very top. And then they'll basically say, okay, we do offer a franchise opportunity. These are the investment parameters, and this is how you can go about getting some additional information. So right on the website, just like any other company, people essentially have the option if they want to have corporate locations or if they want to franchise it, right? It's not one better than the other. It's based off the strategy or the growth strategy of the corporation. In many cases, a franchise will have a few maybe locations before they start franchising it. So they may have 5 corporate-owned locations and 100 franchise locations, because they want proof of concept. They want to be able to show that this actually works. There's a system in place. We make money, and this is how we can show you the exact same model. So check out their websites. It's really based off of growth strategy. Some people go into licensing, franchising, corporate-owned. The list goes on. So it's based off of what you're looking to accomplish. For anyone listening in, they may have a business right now. Maybe it's one location. Maybe it's a small mom and pop restaurant business. And they're like, you know what? I'm thinking of franchising. I go back to what I ask everyone, and I say, why? Why do you want to franchise? And usually I hear answers like, I want to make lots of money. I want to be all over. And I go, keep in mind, that is fine, right? We can, talk to a professional, figure out if the business has legs, if investors will like it, if it's a system that's easy to follow. But keep in mind that your role is going to change. So that person that may have been a chef at the restaurant, now they're becoming more of a coach and showing other people the system. So the roles will change. Maybe it's less cooking, right? And creating recipes. I'm not saying it goes away, but you're really going to be focusing on helping individuals and replicating the exact same business model across the country. So keeping that in mind, talking with a company that handles business development and creating a franchise is definitely my recommendation. And that's all free. Typically, they'll do that for a free 1-hour consultation.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I imagine teaching and marketing and certainly having the books together are major pieces of taking your organization from a one location, one area business to a multiple location business. What are some of the pitfalls, right? What, if somebody's going after, somebody's offering, in this day and age, I mean, there's a hustle, whether you're talking about, crypto markets or, there's always somebody that's like, hey, get rich quick, buy this, it's going to make you money. What are the things that you sort of tell people to stay away from when they're looking at getting into the franchise business? Is there danger signs? And I want to talk about this for two reasons, because if people are wanting to set up systems and processes, or they're wanting to franchise their business, what are some of the models and language they should stay away from? And on the other side of it, if you're looking to purchase, what's a sales, pitch that you should be wary of?
Yeah. So first off, focus on what you want, right? There's going to be so many options out there. As I mentioned, 4,000 franchise companies, and they are definitely not all built the same. So focus on what you want. I think if you focus on what you want and are specific on what you're looking for, it narrows down that 4,000 franchise universe into maybe a couple dozen franchises, if that, maybe even less. And what I help every single candidate, every single person that I talk with is getting clear if the franchise is the right fit. That's the big problem that I help people solve. Instead of looking at Chick-fil-A and this franchise versus that franchise, let's figure out if a franchise is even a good fit for you. It may just be a career change. So we get clear on what that is, and we get into the specifics. Some of the franchises, as I mentioned, aren't all built the same. And a big part of the due diligence process is, yes, you're going to talk to the franchise company. Yes, you're going to review their franchise agreement. But more importantly, where there's a huge benefit to franchising is you get to speak directly with the franchise owners, existing franchise owners, and saying, okay, I got all this great information. I have the item 7, which is the range in investment. I have an item 19, which is the range in what I could make. And maybe it's an average base of length of time in that business, not a guarantee, but just a range. Knowing what you know today, would you do it all over again? As a franchisee, we just, we've gone through COVID, right? 2020, 2021. I'm not saying we're out of the weeds, but, a lot of businesses were being affected. As being a franchisee, did the franchisor really step up? Did they change their systems? Did they wait? A lot of our fitness franchises went virtual. People were home. They had equipment. They made their system completely available to all their members, so they're able to work at home since they weren't allowed to get together at the gym. So I arm you with as many of the best questions that we can think of, the questions that I asked and the questions that I think about on a daily basis, so that you are armed and ready to go. At the end of the day, we don't do the due diligence for you. It's up to you, but we'll essentially help you throughout the process and asking the right questions and in a certain order. You don't talk to existing franchisees in the very beginning because you don't know the business model enough. So we say, talk to the franchise company, review the agreement, and then speak with the franchisees, and you'll get a really good picture. And then sometimes it's a 3-way tie, and I'll say, okay, well, you need to break it down. Which do you think you'll be a better fit for, as far as the daily
enjoy more, which is going to be a better fit for you, your personality? Absolutely. And I love that, what you're saying is, always goes back to basics, right? Do your research, do your homework, talk to people, get some advice. Don't make quick decisions that have long consequences, right?
And if you feel like you're being sold to, maybe that franchise isn't the right fit. You find something on your own, and you have the first phone call, and they're already asking you to come out and visit them and buy the franchise in a few weeks, and we can get you trained right away. That's a little bit too aggressive. You want to take your time with this. It doesn't take years to make a decision. May only take you a month or two, because all that information is going to be packaged for you, because everyone has essentially similar questions. So yeah, it's really packaged for you, and really it's up to you to decide if it's a good fit.
I love that. Let's get into these takeaways for folks, right? To make any decisions, start with the end in mind. We've been talking about this, right? Reverse engineering the process. Talk to me about how you go about reverse engineering the process, right? How does somebody go about understanding what the destination is before they even start?
Yeah. So, what does your life look like 5, 10 years from now? So that's the end in mind, and where people get stuck on this part is they're figuring out how they're going to go about it. And I just say, throw all that aside. The how, the who, all that stuff we'll figure out later. But figuring out, where do you want to be in 10 years? Are you retired? Are you still working? Are you working part-time? And then saying, okay, this is my 10-year vision, and then let's work in reverse. What vehicle is going to help me get to that 10-year goal? And there are various vehicles. There are jobs, there are businesses, franchise businesses, investments, real estate. The list goes on. And the beauty is that it could be all of them. You can be an employee and have a franchise on the side. You can also own real estate. You can own a franchise and then open up a separate legal entity, and buy the building that your franchise is located in. So you are not limited. But let's figure out where you want to be. Let's figure out the vehicles and what is the right fit. They may all be a great fit, but now we focus on financials. Financially, are you capable of being able to afford this franchise and paying the franchise fee and all the investment costs? So once you are clear on where you want to be, I think it's much easier to say, okay, these are some ideas. Maybe real estate's out of the question. Commercial real estate, I don't have access to all this capital. Maybe I look at a franchise that can cash flow maybe a little bit quicker, since the business is set up for me. We look at funding options and companies that will help give you all those options. But once you're clear on what you want, I think it just makes it simpler. It reduces the anxiety. And I think most people just get stuck on the how and how I'm going to get to this place in 10 years, that they freeze and they do nothing about it. And was my experience for a few years, until I had enough. My motivation was, I cannot continue this way. With a 5-hour commute, I'll never see my kids. So that was enough pain to help me make my decision to do something else.
I love that. And I think it's really interesting, because it's really about finding what kind of business you want to be in. Somebody that's been there, done that. Now, whether you get into bed with a franchise company or you're building out a franchise yourself, I thought it was really interesting watching the founder, right? And so there's the story of Ray Kroc, as he's sort of trying to figure it all out. And then he gets into it, and he suddenly realizes that McDonald's is not in the burger business.
Right.
They're in the real estate business. And that was like, I was watching the movie and I was like blown away. They did a really good job of dramatizing that moment. But, this is the thing that I think is really, as you get into business and understand concepts around profit and business model, the idea that you can be going one total direction. You don't realize that the true opportunity is over here. And I think one of the nice things about even just talking with somebody like you is that you get to understand a lot more about where the business actually meets the road in terms of actual profit, actually being able to work for somebody
Right.
In their life. As my journey started out and I was getting into entrepreneurship, the money side of it has been great in terms of being able to pay bills, but the freedom piece of it has been the big thing for me. I get to see my children. I get to see my family. I wouldn't get that from working a 9 to 5. And so that's why it's entrepreneurship for me, but that may not be enough or what somebody else needs. Right. So let's get into this next takeaway here. We talk about who, not how. You don't have to figure everything out, or how to get there. Find the who, and they will be able to help you. So talk to me about that. And maybe you can share a little bit of a story on when that sort of became a big revelation for you in your life, where it was like, oh, wow, I should have met this person earlier, or I should have known this person earlier, because this has been the difference.
Yeah. So Who Not How is actually a book by Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, and I think I read that. It was last December of 2020, I believe. Around that time it came out, and it really hit home. And that's the premise of the book. Is it's not how and you figuring out exactly how to turn your business around or what your vision is, and figuring out a detailed plan. It's really who can help you get there much quicker. Exponential. We talk about exponential growth, or I should say, Dan Sullivan talks about exponential growth, and knowing the key people out there that you can seek for advice. And it may be a friend, it may be someone that's on the show, on your podcast, maybe a business coach, but someone that can really elevate your game, put you in touch with other people. So, for example, someone who works with me, we have funding partners. So when people come to me and say, I'm really interested, everything makes sense, but I don't know, I only have X amount in the bank, maybe I have 100,000 in the bank, or it's all in retirement. They may not realize they have funding options that can utilize retirement, or that they can get a loan in a relatively short period of time. So we put them in touch with our funding partners and experts to really guide them through the process in every way that they can fund this business. So I think, growing your network, and that's the reason I got into started my podcast, Franchise Freedom, 2 years ago. It wasn't to monetize, it wasn't to bring in leads, it was really to network. It just happened to work out that it was the beginning of COVID. We actually launched in January of 2020, where people weren't allowed to travel. So I think, having access and talking with these people, learning, being able to collaborate. I always make an introduction. Anyone that's listening to the show that wants an introduction, all my guests will be more than glad to take your call and help you out the best way they can. So finding those key people. As far as a experience of mine, I had a business coach that I worked with years and years ago. She was the one that helped me get into franchising. She noticed, certain verbiage and things I was saying that my parachute from the book, What Color is Your Parachute, for everyone trying to figure out what career that they want to be in. The color of my parachute was business processes in place.
Yeah. Say it again. Business what?
It's business processes that are in place for you. So it kind of runs with the idea from E-Myth. And she was able to put me in touch with, believe it or not, another business coach, other franchisees that I was able to network with, who eventually led me to helping me find my first attorney, my first CPA, financial advisors. And it just kind of branched out. And all of a sudden I have this team that all know one another, that all work together. And I talk about that in my book, and building that team, the who, and it was really beneficial. So I think really networking and working with other people, I think finding those right people will definitely help you expedite the entire process.
And let me just speak to this on a point, because during the pandemic, very challenging for my business. And because I was networking, I met a banker. Now, I had existing relationships. I had an existing relationship with Citibank, I had an existing relationship with Apple. They didn't help me during PPP. And luckily I was networking. I was expanding my network. Talked to Aiden Hand, who's with Key Bank. And we didn't have an existing relationship. I didn't have accounts in place.
Right.
He helped me out with PPP. He was the who that allowed me to easily apply for PPP. We did 2 rounds of PPP for a hospitality-based business. We know how restaurants were affected. Mine was totally based on events and stuff. So during the pandemic, so really, really key in the who, right? Because if I didn't know this guy and I was struggling to get through it, I mean, Aiden's been great. And I'm flabbergasted because I had years and years and years of doing business with Citibank.
Right. And
so it's really key to be meeting new people. I was on a call this morning with a woman for cancer. We're talking to each other from, she's in Dublin, Ireland. And she's written this book on inclusion in the workplace. And she was talking about, I was, kind of banging my head. I was doing these jobs. I wanted to advance, and it was a boys club. And so, just in terms of listening to you talk, you have to be ever expanding. When the opportunity isn't there, you have to open that door. And I think a lot of times opening that door is finding the right who and getting connected. And then it's just, really interesting. One business coach led me to another business coach that led me to some financial advice, right? And it starts leading you down a path that otherwise wouldn't be available to you if you weren't reaching out and creating these opportunities, which is what this whole show is all about. I'm trying to let people know, and very much on the same wavelength with you. If somebody wants to get in touch with Giuseppe right now, you need to reach out. Let me know. We'll make sure that you connect and make sure that you start getting this advice in your life to help you on to that next step. Right. So I love that. I don't know if there's something else you wanted to add in there.
No, it's funny you mentioned that because I had a similar experience where my bank did not help me with my PPP loan, and same exact thing. I reached out to others, and that changed the game. That changed. It's like, what? The people that really helped me out, they had no benefit. Wasn't even banking with that person or did any business with that person. So I think that's huge, and it's a two-way street. As much you ask questions, then obviously I always say any question, any way I can help. It doesn't have to be about franchising.
Now I'm opening up bank accounts, and I know that I have this great relationship with this banker. It didn't help him at the time. He's not making any money off of me. The accounts that he opened up, they're not charging any fees on me. Like, it was all. But who do I want to do business with? The guy that helped me when he didn't need to, or the bank that didn't help me when they should have?
Right. Yeah, it's true. That's true. Absolutely.
Where am I going to take my business? Like it just works that way, right? Let's talk about this last takeaway here. As a business owner, you should always build and have systems in place, as discussed in Michael E. Gerber's book. I'm a fan as well. I just actually re-listened to it on Audible. I had read it in the book first, and it was different listening to it. Different experience. I remember reading the book. If you haven't read the book, I really recommend that you read the book. When I first read it, I was like, why am I in a bakery right now with the pie maker? It took a little while for me to sort of start getting it. But once we got into it, it's almost a religious experience, because I'm sitting there. I did that I've been down that dark road. Yep. I'm living what you're talking about. I've been frustrated by this, and he lays out some really great solutions for how to look at your business, line up those processes and systems. So as a business owner, you should always build and have systems in place, as discussed in Michael E. Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited. These systems will free up your time to experience time and financial freedom. So what are some of the things that you sort of look at and sort of laying this takeaway when a franchise gets this right? Are you able to sort of suss out when a franchise hasn't built these systems in a way? I think I know the answer to this question, but are you seeing that in a franchise when they've really laid it out and they got those really great systems and processes? And then what's the solution to that? Do you just say, no, I don't want a franchise, or we know how to fix that solution? I know I'm laying out a lot here for you. I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, the stronger franchises have the system in place. That's what you're buying. You're buying the knowledge, the systems, the trial and error by the franchise companies. So typically when I talk to someone, they're looking for some type of time or financial freedom. So financial freedom, obviously, is profitability, looking to make more money. We know the advantages of owning a business. But when it comes to time freedom, you don't want to be making all this money and still being stuck at the job for 12 hours a day, or the business 12 hours a day. So some of the companies really stand out. What's your process? What's your system? What does marketing look like? For example, we look at a business that happens to be mosquito spraying, and people say, well, I don't know anything about it. How much money can you make with mosquitoes? Yada, yada, yada. And a lot of these businesses happen to be in that business, mosquito spraying. Maybe it's residential cleaning. Maybe it's residential painting. But really what that business is an online marketing engine that allows you as the owner to really hire your staff, oversee the business, network, chamber of commerce events, things like that. And the business is automated. They get you the leads. They have a call center taking the calls, even in some cases taking payment. So you have a business now that is offering a service like mosquito spraying, but what it is that online marketing engine that happens to be in that specific business, which has a ton of demand in most parts of the country. So now that you have the system in place, a lot of the franchise companies will come back and say, okay, we're in this space. We figured it all out. Why can't we just add on additional franchises offering different services? So from mosquito spraying, solid business model. They figured out how to get the leads. Now we're dealing with a couple hundred homeowners the first year. We can now pivot and offer a franchise that offers residential cleaning, roofing, landscaping, lawn service, and things like that. So these systems are going to be key to give you the time freedom so that everyone knows what their roles are and you don't become a bottleneck to where I've seen this even in franchises when some companies are not at the same level where everything is weighing on the owner for the owner to give the final approval and say, good franchises will come back and say, these are the roles of the owner. These are the roles of the employees.
Yeah.
You need to empower your employees and be okay with their decisions. If they don't make a great decision, you don't beat them up and say you shouldn't have done. You have a private chat and say you did what you thought was right at the time. This is how maybe we can improve better. So I think that process and asking those difficult questions to the franchisor and saying what systems are in place. So I'm not going to be a ball and chain to this business and be here every day. And then speaking to the franchisees as to their experience. Now you have a great picture of exactly what that business looks like.
I love that. And maturity as a business owner is understanding that you want employees to step up and be better at you than the business so that you don't have to be involved with the business. And the only way that somebody is going to get better than you at the business is if they go and they do it and they have the opportunity to fail just like you did. Right. I always sort of, it's really interesting when you see people that are like, this person has to be perfect. But you weren't perfect, right?
No, none of us are.
So you got to give people the freedom to fail forward and see it. I mean, so oftentimes we hear the horror stories of, oh man, this person failed and they were promoted, and I know there's really bad reasons why that happens, but there's also good reasons why that happened. There's a reason it's a familiar story is because you need to learn, and sometimes you can't learn any other way than from your failures and your mistakes, and it's how you deal with it. I know for myself going through my career, I was fired from one company, and then years later they hired me back in a much higher position because I didn't freak out when I was originally fired the first time. So it's how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? And how do you mature as an employee? How do you mature as an owner? And you get into these situations. I think anybody that's working with you would benefit from the conversation, Giuseppe, because I think this is the kind of place where you have to be as an entrepreneur, whether you're getting into franchise or franchising yourself. I know we were talking about having the conversation because I'm in that place with Toth Event Staffing where I'm trying to build my systems and processes. We're looking at, when you talk about adding on services, we're at that place where, okay, we're thinking about, the larger scheme of things, business model. We're already working with a lot of clients. What are other services that we can offer them, and how can we duplicate this in another place? How can we take this Westchester-based organization in New York and bring it down to Miami? And so then you're right there at that meeting ground, and you're talking about proof, right? So
proof of concept,
proof of concept. I think that's a great place for us to kind of leave this off and sort of close this conversation out. For somebody that wants to take their business, their baby, and they want to release it out to the world and sell the franchise model, what should they be doing in order to prove their concept, to let you and other folks that would work with them know that this is ready, that this is a franchisable operation?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a retail, having more than one location makes it a lot easier. I would not jump the gun. I've heard of people, jumping the gun and creating a franchise agreement and then figuring everything else out. And I would push back and say, do that at the very end. Let's make sure that this business is franchise worthy, that it makes sense, because you definitely have options, and it's really based again on your why, your goal, and your vision. So is it really, is it to make additional money? Well, instead of having 100 franchisees across the country, you could just own 5 outright in 5 major cities in the country and not have to worry about a franchise. Completely own it, have your employees, and that's it. You can also have a license. Maybe you offer an add-on service that existing companies can offer. So there's definitely options out there, but I would recommend anyone that's thinking about that, feel free to give me a ring. We can figure out what you're looking to do, and we can put you in touch with a company that specializes in that area. And the beauty is the people we work with, or the companies we work with, will go through the same kind of exercise to figure out if it's to be completely owned on your own, franchise, or license. But answer the question. So Cameron, why would I buy a franchise from you? You know, if I'm going to spend X amount on a franchise fee, what's in place? What, you know, is it semi-absentee? What's the training for your
Am I
general
buying
manager?
a job or am I buying a business? Yes.
Right. And some franchises are built where they're essentially someone is buying a job and they're fine with that. In other cases, they want an investment where they're like, okay, let me hire my team so I can back off and travel. I can invest in real estate. I can look at other opportunities. So you build a model, you have your ideal franchise kind of avatar, who's the right fit. What's the skill set? So that's on you to figure out. Is it someone that's more of an extrovert? Is an introvert? Do they need experience? Can you teach them from scratch? Once you're very clear on who the right fit is, then you're able to market that to the world and see if people are interested. But a traditional franchise, you're going to pay a royalty. Is there enough support there? Do you have the staff to support these franchisees? So these are some things to think about.
Yeah, I think that, so often we build businesses and there's not enough profit model to support the business owner, let alone a franchise royalty plus the owner salary plus management plus staff and employees. So just getting things down to where you can pay yourself. There's profit. There's money going in for capital improvements and capital expenditures. Such a big deal. I know in building my business, just looking at that and actually getting to the place where we were actually priced out where we could actually put money into that has been long process. As somebody coming into a business, if they're thinking about all those things, man, they're way ahead of where I was when I was starting, for sure. It's taken me probably 9 out of the 11 years to just sort of get there with my mental space of like, oh, that's what I need to do. Okay, let's go. Well, now we're getting started 11 years in, right?
It's a learning process, but right. I mean, they're going to ask, what's your profit margin? And as you grow, there's economies of scale, and now you're able to negotiate better rates, maybe on insurance. A painting company obviously is going to have economies of scale. They're able just the paint alone, they can save so much over a standalone painter, right? So you look at the support, the royalty. Sometimes the royalty, as I mentioned, the mosquito spraying business, they have a call center. Now you don't even need an office because they're handling the calls for you. So you're paying a percentage, but you save on the office and that employee that's working in the office for you. So definitely do the due diligence.
I love those considerations because it's also the same kind of considerations that you would think about. Okay, I have a business and I want to take on an equity partnership. Well, there's plus and minuses to that. Now you have a partner that has a say-so possibly in how you run your business. So it's a big thing. Like, do you just want to take a loan out and not have to deal with a partner? Or do you want to, deal with some sort of equity situation where now you've built a partner, in a Shark Tank style thing? Maybe they're investing in the business, but you're also getting a added boost business of knowledge. Right. You're getting the who. You're getting somebody that has the connections, the knowledge. And so that's a good deal. Something to really consider on how you're getting into business and how you're taking on financing, whether you're financing somebody else's business in a franchise partnership, right? Because you're getting something, but you're paying them and will continue to pay them versus somebody coming into your business as an equity partner. I think, all these things kind of relate. And so it's just wrapping your head around business models and finance models. Really, really good to know folks like yourself that can actually help with those decisions, come with lots of different options. I thought, again, our just quick conversation about my friend's situation was really eye-opening. So I'm hoping that anybody that's thinking about the franchise path, that they give you a call and they get connected with you here on LinkedIn or someplace else so that they can have that conversation and find the path to the dream, especially if they're hitting that ceiling in their corporate business and they're looking for a way out and they want to build something that's already been thought out, got the processes and systems in place to, I wouldn't say make it easy, but make it easier.
Absolutely. That's I'm here to help in any way possible. Sometimes it's the unfortunate I don't think a franchise is the right fit, but I think anyone listening in, you owe it to yourself to, I do a 20-minute call with everyone just to figure that part out, figure out the big problem. If a franchise is a potential solution. And the best part, we don't charge for our services. We're similar to the eHarmony of franchising. So we really are able to help out in the best way possible. There's no cost. We're paid directly from the franchise companies. You owe it to yourself. If you don't have time to do the research, I would say hold off on it until you do have the time. Create the atmosphere. Maybe it's taking another job. Maybe it's during your lunch break, as I did when I worked in New York City, and that's when I did my research. But you really need to take the time. Maybe it's time off. Maybe it's your lunch break to do the research. Contact someone like myself. There's really no cost to you aside from your time. So I encourage everyone to reach out, even if they have a basic franchise question. They're not certain. There's a lot of myths. Franchises don't all cost millions of dollars. They're not all in fast food. So even if it's to answer one or two basic questions, reach out. I answer all my emails, texts, and messages directly. So would love to connect and help you any way I can.
Yeah, I think it's such great advice. I would say, I'm meeting so many people that, they're not utilizing the resources that are available to them. They're not, we connected via LinkedIn. They're not utilizing LinkedIn the way that they could be, just reaching out and searching. I was talking about finding, whether a company, just getting on Google and asking the question, hey, is this company a franchise? You probably get the answer that way, looking on the website, but also just reaching out to people. And I know I've had that situation of, I want to reach out for legal advice, but I'm afraid if somebody's charging me. So if you're watching this now, you got somebody just who's willing to have that conversation. And I think finding those people that are willing to have the conversations, because either one, you'll find somebody that's actually good to work with and have a partnership with, or they're going to point you in the right direction and lead you to the next who that can help you. Absolutely. All right, Giuseppe, I want you to kind of close things out for us with some final words, and I'll play us off with the BizDev theme. Thank you so much for giving me your time today. I know I learned something. I know people watching this will learn something. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. So for everyone listening in, I encourage you to reach out. I like to level the playing field to everyone. So definitely reach out. I'll help you the best way possible, but you owe it to yourself to at least give yourself a chance. So if you have preconceived notions, if you thought about, I don't have the money or the timing isn't right, when is the time going to be right? So I would definitely take the time, take the day off, reach out to me. I'll help you the best way I can. In some cases, it's that additional who. Maybe it's a career change, and we're able to put you in touch with a career recruiter, career counselor. So would love to speak with you, help you in any way possible. And if you go to the website, GG, my initials, thefranchiseguide.com, you can download my new book, Franchise Freedom, which is down here in the background here, or also listen to my podcast, Franchise Freedom. We cover a new topic every week. So take advantage of that, and looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, Giuseppe. This was awesome.
BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. BizDev Live, business development, not even selling it. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. BizDev Live, BizDev Live.